Happy Thursday, fellow Cough Country citizens, and welcome to Cough Country News, your home for cannabis news. I'm Billo, and I will be your pilot on tonight's flight. So here's what we have for you tonight. First, after nearly 5 years of delays and legal challenges and licensing disputes, Alabama officially opens its first medical cannabis dispensary. After that, Trulieve prepares for a potentially historic move, one that could make the first plant-touching U.S. cannabis company to list on the New York Stock Exchange. Then, later tonight, we'll show you how to read a cannabis label like a pro, and why THC percentage is only a part of the story. We'll also preview a special late-night green interview with cannabis educator and industry veteran Charles Stockstill. These stories and the latest cannabis headlines and much, much more coming up next right now on Cough Country News.
No sticks, no seeds, just news.
From the Cough Country News desk, it's Billo with your cannabis news.
Well, thank you for that, Oliver. Always appreciate your introductions. Don't forget, folks, if you appreciate this kind of content, then please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. For an emerging channel like ourselves, it really helps with the algorithms. Now, for years, Alabama patients have waited. They've watched neighboring states launch medical cannabis programs. They've watched legal challenges delay licenses, and they've watched deadline after deadline come and go. And now, after nearly 5 years of delays, medical cannabis is finally available in Alabama. The state's first medical cannabis dispensary, Callie's Apothecary in Montgomery, has officially opened its doors. The opening marks a historic milestone for Alabama's medical marijuana program, which was originally authorized by lawmakers in 2021. The first purchase was made by patient advocate Amanda Taylor, who has spent more than a decade fighting for medical cannabis access in Alabama. Taylor, who lives with multiple sclerosis, said she previously moved to Arizona to gain access to medical cannabis treatment before returning home to advocate for patients across Alabama. Now, according to Alabama law, medical cannabis can be recommended for qualifying conditions, including cancer, PTSD, Parkinson's disease, chronic pain, sickle cell disease, and of course, terminal illnesses. Unlike other states, Alabama's program does not allow smokable cannabis flower. Instead, patients can purchase products such as tablets, tinctures, oils, patches, and approved edible formulations. The road to this moment was far from smooth. Alabama's medical cannabis rollout faced years of lawsuits, licensing disputes, court challenges, and of course, repeated delays. At several points, the entire program appeared uncertain. Now, state officials say more dispensaries are expected to open later this year. And when fully operational, Alabama is expected to have 12 dispensary locations across the state operated by multiple licensed companies. State regulators also report that hundreds of patients have already joined the registry, with additional physicians continuing to become certified to recommend medical cannabis. For many advocates, the opening represents more than just new business. It's the end of a years-long fight and the beginning of a new chapter for patients seeking alternative treatment options. This has been 5 years of waiting and years of lawsuits, but now Alabama's first medical cannabis dispensary is finally open. For decades, America's cannabis industry has operated in a world of contradictions. Legal in many states, but illegal at the federal level, generating billions of dollars in revenue, yet largely shut out of the nation's biggest financial markets. But now, one of the industry's largest companies may be about to change all that. Cannabis giant Trulieve Cannabis Corporation has announced plans to list its shares on the New York Stock Exchange. And if completed, the move could mark a historic first. No major U.S. plant-touching cannabis operator has successfully listed on the New York Stock Exchange before. And industry observers say this could become one of the most important financial milestones in modern cannabis history. To understand why this matters, you have to understand the challenges cannabis companies have faced for years. Despite legalization across the country, federal prohibition has prevented most American cannabis operators from accessing major stock exchanges like the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. Instead, many companies have been forced to raise capital through smaller Canadian exchanges or trade over the counter in less liquid markets. And that's often meant fewer investors, less visibility, and higher costs of doing business. Now, Trulieve is no small player. It was founded in Florida. The company has grown into one of the largest cannabis operators in the United States, with cultivation facilities, manufacturing operations, and dispensaries spread across multiple states. The company has built a reputation as one of the strongest performers in the cannabis sector, particularly in medical cannabis markets. Now, industry analysts say a successful New York Stock Exchange listing could send a powerful message to Wall Street. And Wall Street needs to get a powerful message. For years, many institutional investors have remained cautious about cannabis, not necessarily because they oppose the industry, but because federal laws created uncertainty. A New York Stock Exchange listing could signal that mainstream financial institutions are becoming more comfortable with cannabis-related businesses, and the timing of this is especially interesting. The cannabis industry is currently navigating one of the most important periods in history. Federal rescheduling discussions continue, and cannabis banking reform remains under debate. And investors are closely watching for signs that Washington may eventually loosen restrictions on the industry. Many experts believe greater access to public markets will be critical for cannabis companies looking to expand. For cannabis businesses, access to capital isn't just about stock prices. It's about growth. It's about building cultivation facilities, opening dispensaries, hiring employees, and investing in research, and competing in an increasingly crowded marketplace. Supporters say easier access to major exchanges could help mature the industry, making cannabis business look more like traditional consumer companies. But some analysts caution that this isn't a magical solution. The cannabis industry still faces significant challenges, and federal legalization still has not happened. Many companies continue to struggle with profitability, and regulatory uncertainty remains a major concern. But still, many see Trulieve's move as a sign of progress, a sign that cannabis may be moving closer to financial legitimacy than ever before. For years, the cannabis industry has been trying to prove it belongs in the mainstream economy, and now one company may be about to take a seat at one of the most prestigious tables in finance. And if successful, the impact could expand far beyond Trulieve. It could influence how investors, regulators, and just as importantly, banks and the public view the cannabis industry moving forward. This is just one company and one stock exchange, but it's a moment that could help define the next chapter of American cannabis. Now, while many states are expanding cannabis access, Idaho is moving in the opposite direction. Idaho, please. Idaho lawmakers have approved ballot language for a proposed state constitutional amendment that would prevent voters from legalizing marijuana through a ballot initiative. If ultimately approved by voters, the measure would make Idaho one of the most restrictive states in the nation when it comes to cannabis reform. Under this proposal, only the Idaho legislature would have the authority to legalize marijuana or other controlled substances. That means citizens could no longer use the state's initiative process to place marijuana legalization measure directly before voters. Supporters say the amendment is about protecting public health and ensuring elected lawmakers, not ballot campaigns, make decisions regarding controlled substances. Backers argue that marijuana policy should be debated through the legislative process rather than decided through statewide initiatives. However, critics see this much differently. Cannabis reform advocates argue the proposal is less about marijuana and more about limiting voter power. They point out the ballot initiatives have been responsible for much of the cannabis legalization movement across the United States. In fact, many states legalized medical or adult use marijuana only after voters approved statewide ballot measures. Idaho remains one of the few states without a medical marijuana program. It's also surrounded by neighboring states that have adopted various forms of cannabis reform. That includes, it's a nice list, Montana, Nevada, Oregon, and Washington State. Now, the proposed amendment will head to Idaho voters, and if approved, Idaho voters are idiots. No, if approved, future marijuana legalization efforts would face a much higher hurdle. Instead of gathering signatures and qualifying for the ballot, supporters would need to convince lawmakers instead of state legislators. The move highlights a growing divide across America. While some states continue expanding cannabis program, others are taking steps to slow, limit, or prevent legalization efforts altogether. Now, this is just one ballot measure in one state and a debate that should be watched over who should decide the future of marijuana legalization. The FIFA World Cup is expected to bring millions of visitors to the United States this summer. Fans from around the world, different cultures, different languages, and for many, their very first encounter with legal cannabis. Now, New York officials are launching a major education effort to make sure visitors know the rules before kickoff. The campaign is called High Kicks. According to New York's Office of Cannabis Management, the goal is very simple. Help visitors safely access legal cannabis while avoiding the state's still thriving illicit marijuana market. John Kaga, executive director of the Office of Cannabis Management, says officials want visitors to enjoy New York responsibly. Kaga is quoted as saying, we certainly want to see any we certainly don't want to see any adverse events. He goes on to say, it's really important to access the legal market in a responsible manner. The timing couldn't be better. MetLife Stadium in New Jersey will host 8 World Cup matches, including some of the tournament's biggest games. Millions of fans are expected to travel through the New York metropolitan area between June and July. And that means a major opportunity for New York's rapidly growing cannabis industry. Today, more than 200 licensed cannabis dispensaries operate throughout New York and the surrounding region. Many business owners believe the World Cup could become one of the biggest sales opportunities since legalization. And some dispensaries are already planning special promotions, World Cup themed events, and watch parties designed to attract soccer fans from around the globe. One New York area dispensary owner told reporters that consumers wearing their favorite national team's jersey will receive special gifts during the tournament. Others are planning VIP viewing events and cannabis-friendly experiences for visiting fans. Industry observers say the World Cup could introduce thousands of international visitors to New York's legal cannabis market for the very first time. But regulators say there's one major problem. Not every cannabis store in New York is legal. I don't get this. New York, get your stuff together. Despite years of enforcement efforts, illegal cannabis shops continue to operate throughout the city. For tourists unfamiliar with New York's cannabis laws, it can be difficult to tell the difference. That's why officials are encouraging visitors to look for the official state-issued cannabis license sticker, which should be displayed on the dispensary doors and the windows. According to state regulators, products sold through licensed dispensaries are tested for safety and for quality. Illegal products may not be tested at all. Officials warn that unregulated cannabis products could contain contaminants, misleading potency information, or other substances consumers aren't expecting. The campaign also serves as a reminder that legalization still comes with restrictions. Fans attending matches and public watch parties should know that smoking cannabis in public places remains prohibited under New York law. Officials are encouraging visitors to be respectful of families, children, and other attendees enjoying the festivities. KEGA warns visitors should be mindful of where and when they consume cannabis. And perhaps the most important reminder for international travelers is do not fly with cannabis. Even if cannabis is legal in New York, federal law still governs air travel. State officials warn visitors not to bring cannabis across state lines, and especially not across international borders. For New York's cannabis industry, the World Cup represents more than just soccer. It's a chance to showcase a legal market that has spent years building infrastructure, expanding access, and competing against an illicit market. For cannabis businesses, it's an opportunity to reach customers from around the world, and for regulators, it's a chance to prove that legal cannabis and responsible tourism can coexist. Folks, it's going to be a global tournament with millions of visitors and more than 200 legal dispensaries, and a cannabis industry hoping to score one of its biggest wins yet. Now, still ahead on Cough Country News, are you an informed cannabis consumer? Do you think you're buying cannabis the right way? You might be making the same mistake as thousands of other consumers. After the break, we'll show you how to read a cannabis label like a pro, and why THC percentage doesn't tell the whole story. Plus, a suspect in India tries to hide cannabis inside of a pressure cooker, but the pressure cooker had other plans. Stay with us after the break. You're watching Cough Country News. Cool.
Is your cannabis company still using smoke signals to advertise? There's a better way.
How many black people have you seen in Maine? Have you seen a black man here? Yeah, other than me. Why isn't there no black people here? Have you seen any black folks other than me here? Why do you think there's no black people here?
I hope one day you get some, and hopefully in those 2-3 strokes, you don't catch a stroke, you don't pass away. All I know is this man looks desperate and he needs a shorty.
Welcome back, folks. Hope you enjoyed that little break. Now, when shopping for cannabis, many consumers make the same mistake. They only look at one number, the THC percentage. But experts say that number only tells part of the story. Today, on Cough Country News, we're breaking down how to read a cannabis label like a pro. Let's start with that number, the one everyone looks for first, THC. THC is the primary psychoactive cannabinoid responsible for the high associated with cannabis. Now, many consumers automatically assume the higher the THC means the better the product, but that's not necessarily true. Experienced consumers actually prefer products with lower THC percentages because of the terpene profile and the overall experience that they provide, and the overall experience that the terpenes provide. In other words, a 22% THC flower can sometimes deliver a more enjoyable experience than a 32% THC flower. Now that brings us to terpenes, or terpenes. Terpenes are aromatic compounds naturally found in cannabis and, of course, many other plants and flowers. They're responsible for scents like citrus, pine, fuel, lavender, and earthiness. Common terpenes include, and I am going to destroy these words, myrcene, limonene, caryophyllene, pinene, and linalool. Sorry for anyone who knows how to pronounce those words. I'm not very educated. Many consumers pay close attention to terpene content because they believe it helps to shape the overall experience of a particular strain. Next, after that, look for the harvest date and the package date because just like produce at the grocery store, freshness matters. A product harvested several months ago may have a different aroma, flavor profile, and overall quality than a recently harvested batch. Oh, sorry about that, folks. While properly stored cannabis can maintain quality for extended periods, many consumers prefer fresher products whenever possible. Another important section is the testing information. Licensed cannabis products are typically tested for potency, pesticides, heavy metals, microbioles, and residual solvents. These results help consumers to understand what's actually in the products and whether it has passed required safety standards. This is just like in the previous story about New York. This is what they're telling you. Make sure that you're buying from a licensed retailer to make sure that this testing has been done. An educated consumer should also pay attention to the cannabinoid profile. THC isn't the only cannabinoid that matters. Many products also contain CBD, CBG, CBN, and other minor cannabinoids. Each may contribute differently to the overall experience. So, what's the bottom line? Don't judge a cannabis product by simply the THC percentage alone. Take a closer look at the terpene profile, the harvest date, the testing results, and the cannabinoid content. Because understanding the label can help you make a more informed choice and ultimately find the product that's right for you. Before there were billion-dollar cannabis companies, before there were adult use dispensaries, and before legalization became a national political issue, there were patients. Medical cannabis was the foundation of the modern cannabis movement. It was the argument that changed public opinion, the reason many states first legalized marijuana, and the force that helped transform cannabis from an underground product into a legitimate industry. But today, medical cannabis finds itself at a crossroads, and a growing number of industry leaders are asking a critical question. Can federal rescheduling revive medical cannabis? Now, for years, medical marijuana programs drove cannabis growth across the United States. Patients with chronic pain, cancer, PTSD, epilepsy, and dozens of other qualifying conditions sought access through state-regulated programs. Obtaining a medical card was often the only legal pathway to cannabis, but that landscape has changed dramatically. As more states legalized recreational marijuana, many consumers stopped participating in medical programs altogether. Why bother to maintain a medical card, schedule a doctor appointment, and pay annual fees when cannabis can simply be purchased from an adult use dispensary? The result has been a noticeable decline in patient enrollment in several mature cannabis markets. Now, some states have seen medical sales stagnate altogether, and others have seen patients migrate almost entirely to recreational programs. Now, federal marijuana rescheduling could potentially change that conversation. Last year, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services recommended moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3 under the Controlled Substances Act. And if finalized, it would represent the most significant federal cannabis policy shift in modern history. Most discussions surrounding rescheduling have focused on business impacts, tax relief, banking access, investment opportunities. But many researchers and industry experts believe the medical implications could be even more significant. Because for decades, one of the biggest barriers facing medical cannabis has been research. Under Schedule 1 classification, cannabis has been treated similarly to substances considered to have no accepted medical use. Researchers have long argued that this classification creates unnecessary hurdles. Obtaining approvals can be difficult, funding opportunities can be limited, and conducting large-scale clinical trials often becomes a far more complicated issue than studying traditional pharmaceuticals. As a result, many doctors have found themselves in an unusual position. Patients are asking questions, research is emerging, but comprehensive clinical data remains limited. Supporters of rescheduling believe moving cannabis to Schedule III could help to change that. Researchers may gain easier access to study materials, universities could expand research programs, more clinical trials could be launched, and physicians may eventually have access to stronger evidence regarding dosing, effectiveness, drug interactions, and long-term outcomes. For the medical cannabis industry, this could be a major turning point. Some experts believe future growth may depend less on legalization and more on scientific validation. The stronger the research becomes, the more comfortable physicians may become recommending cannabis. And the more likely healthcare systems will take cannabis seriously as a treatment option. However, not everyone believes rescheduling alone will create a medical cannabis renaissance. Critics point out that significant challenges will still remain. Cannabis would still not be federally legal, and most products would still lack FDA approval. Insurance companies would likely continue refusing coverages, and large-scale medical research takes years to complete. Even if rescheduling magically happened tomorrow, many of the benefits could take years to fully materialize. Yet, industry leaders continue to watch closely, because for the first time in decades, the federal government appears willing to reconsider how cannabis is classified. And that alone could reshape the future of medical marijuana. The question is no longer whether cannabis has a place in healthcare. Millions of patients have already answered that. The question now is whether science, research, and federal policy can finally catch up. This is one policy change. It's an evolving industry and a growing debate over whether medical cannabis is preparing for its next chapter. Sometimes criminal investigations are solved through careful police work, and sometimes they're solved by a pressure cooker. Authorities in Kerala, India, say a man allegedly tried to hide a stash of cannabis inside a rice-filled pressure cooker. According to reports, the suspect believed the rice would help to conceal the smell and avoid suspicion. And for a while, the plan appeared to be working, right up until it didn't. Police say the pressure cooker, well, first of all, the pressure cooker was plugged in. So police say the pressure cooker began whistling loudly, drawing attention to itself. And when officers inspected the cooker, they reportedly discovered cannabis hidden beneath the rice. The usual hiding place quickly turned into evidence. Authorities seized the cannabis and arrested the suspect. The case has since attracted the attention online, and many people are joking that the pressure cooker became an unexpected witness. While police regularly encounter creative attempts to hide contraband, this one may be among the more memorable. A hidden stash, a pressure cooker, and one loud whistling mistake. A routine traffic stop in Georgia turned into a major marijuana bust, according to the Lee County Sheriff's Office. A 35-year-old Sobia Samreen Ali of Atlanta was pulled over on Highway 19 South after deputies allegedly observed her speeding. But deputies say the traffic stop quickly escalated. Officers reportedly noticed signs of impairment, and Ali was arrested on suspicion of a DUI. While conducting an inventory search before the vehicle was towed, deputies discovered several sealed cardboard boxes throughout the vehicle. And you'll never guess what was inside those boxes. Authorities found dozens of vacuum-sealed packages containing what field tests identified as marijuana. Investigators say they seized 102 pounds of suspected marijuana packaged in 102 individual 1-pound bags. Deputies also confiscated cash, a cell phone, and of course the vehicle involved in the case. Ali has been charged with marijuana trafficking and driving under the influence. Authorities say additional charges may be filed as investigators work to determine where the marijuana originated, where it was headed, and whether others were involved. Lee County Sheriff Reggie Rachels said the case highlights why traffic enforcement remains important. According to the sheriff, routine traffic stops often uncover much larger criminal investigations involving drugs, weapons, and impaired drivers. Jail records show Ali was later released after posting a bond of more than $200,000. That's 102 pounds of marijuana, 102 vacuum-sealed bags, and a single traffic stop that deputies say uncovered a major marijuana trafficking case. Now, coming up next, citizens, Philly Phil sits down with one of the most respected voices in the cannabis industry, cultivator, educator, and event innovator, and certified ganjier, Charles Stockstill. We'll show you a preview of their conversation, including his journey through cannabis, the creation of immersive cannabis experiences, and his thoughts on where the industry is headed. Then, later tonight, we'll be reading some of your comments, reactions, and unfiltered opinions from recent Cough Country TV videos. Because tonight, Cough Country citizens have something to say. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.
Is your cannabis company still using smoke signals to advertise? There's a better way.
How many black people have you seen in Maine? Have you seen a black man here? Yeah, other than me. Why isn't there no black people here? Have you seen any black folks other than me here? Why do you think there's no black people here?
I hope one day you get some, and hopefully in those 2-3 strokes, you don't catch a stroke, you don't pass away. All I know is this man looks desperate and he needs a shorty.
Welcome back, folks. This week on Late Night Green Interview Edition, Philly Phil welcomes one of the cannabis industry's most fascinating voices, a cultivator, cannabis educator, journalist, event innovator, and certified ganjier, Charles Stockstill. For more than 2 decades, Charles has been immersed in cannabis culture, from legacy cultivation to commercial grow operations to helping build some of the industry's most unique cannabis experiences. His journey has taken him across the country into nearly every corner of the cannabis world. During the interview, Charles shares how he became a certified ganjier, often described as the cannabis equivalent of a sommelier, a designation earned through intensive training focused on cannabis quality, cultivation, terpene profiles, once again, trichome development, and sensory evaluation. Let's hear Charles explain what inspired him to pursue the program.
Certification entities, and just nothing ever made me pull the trigger. But because Frenchie was a part of this and one other person that I knew, I decided that if this was where I wanted to put my effort and become the best ganjier I could be. And I wrote them and applied. They wrote back rather quickly and said that they were full. And so I wrote back every day until they let me in. And it was about 2 weeks of me writing every day. And I guess 2 years later, I found out I met this fellow who had actually gotten COVID. during that time, and I got his slot because he couldn't make it. He couldn't smell, and just ruined his palate for quite a while. Certification entities, and just nothing ever made me pull the trigger. But
that determination would eventually lead Charles into one of the most respected cannabis education programs in the industry. Viewers will also hear how Charles transformed his passion into a business, launching the Old Man of the Mountain and his, the Old Man of the Mountain with his wife, Catherine. A company that has become known for creating immersive cannabis education and terpene tasting experiences at events across the country. What started as a single table and a vision eventually grew into a nationally recognized cannabis event experience. Charles explains how he went from setting up a simple display to creating custom terpene bars, educational activations, and interactive experiences that have reached millions of cannabis customers. Take another listen.
I've met so many people over the years. We've had over 2.3 million people come through the experiences in the last 3 years. So I didn't realize how hard it would be to remember everybody. I didn't know I'd ever meet that many people in my entire life. So I can remember faces.
From terpene bars to educational activations and interactive experiences, Charles has helped introduce millions of consumers to cannabis in an entirely new way. The conversation also dives into some of the biggest issues facing cannabis today. Those issues include industry fragmentation, the divide between hemp and cannabis, challenges facing independent operators, and why Charles believes the industry needs to come together if it wants to influence policy and protect its own future. Throughout the interview, Charles offers a rare perspective that blends science, business, advocacy, and decades of hands-on experience. And of course, the discussion wouldn't be complete without stories from the road, including unforgettable cannabis events, his journey through the Ganja Year program in Humboldt County, and how one successful event in New York convinced him he could turn his passion into a career. For Charles, everything changed after one event in New York City. Have a look at this.
Knocked it out of the park. I made like $7,000 or $8,000 that night. It was just me coming down there, talking to people, getting tips, serving them free dabs. It was absolutely insane.
Great.
And on the way home, driving over the Washington Bridge, I realized if I could make it in New York, I could make it anywhere. And that gave me the strongest confidence.
That realization helped transform a passion project into a full-time career and launch the next chapter of his cannabis journey. Whether you're a cannabis enthusiast, an entrepreneur, a cultivator, or simply curious about where the industry is heading, this is an interview you won't want to miss. Charles Stockstill brings knowledge and experience and a unique perspective that makes for one of the most engaging conversations we've had yet. You can watch the complete interview right now on Cough Country TV's YouTube channel. Be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more episodes of Late Night Green Interview Edition. Now, the scary part, we're going to go into viewer comments. We asked for your thoughts, and as always, you delivered. Some comments were funny, some were real, and some of you did not hold back. So let's jump in and read our first comment of the night. This comes from Steve Brown Rocks 2023. Thereby tripling the illegal weed buying. This is in relation to Louisiana rejects legal weed pilot and expands the cannabis penalties. Thereby tripling the illegal weed buying, the utter and complete stupidity of states that don't have the mental capacity to see that they'll never, ever prevent people from getting weed. It's impossible, and the amount of revenue they could receive from legalizing it, it's just stubborn incompetence. And I could not have said it better myself. Yeah, in that story, Louisiana was going to do a 3-year pilot program and instead said, no, we're not going to do that, and we're going to make the penalties for having weed even higher. Way to go. What else do we got here? All right, this one is about cannabis ads during the Mets game sparking parent backlash. And this comes from Failed Prodigy 42. who says, bet they weren't upset about the beer ads. No, you're absolutely right. Not upset about collecting the money either. Way to go. Thanks for the comments. Next up is about the federal drug testing rule sparks cannabis debate. This was about truckers having to submit samples in front of a live person. So, Latuya, crazy, but they sell alcohol at truck stops, which is worse than weeds. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. All right, cannabis industry faces a payment crisis as cash makes a comeback. At Cormick 8613 says, take my money. Yes, yeah, we'll take that cash. Thank you. Next up from, this is, viewer comments are back, and you did not hold back. So this is about last time we did this, and Stevie 2909 says, golly gee, I'm famous. From now on, it will be the high life for me. Yeah, so we read one of Steve's comments, and now he's famous. So keep up the good work, Steve. We'll keep reading your comments. Congress should ban Delta-8 and THC drinks. Hemp industry sounds the alarm. This one comes from Keith HH14, who says, this is so frustrating. I've been using Delta-8 from the House since my state still hasn't legalized, and now they're going to take that away too. It's way better than the usual options anyway, since they actually lab test everything. And I said, I feel you. There's no alternative in states where it's still illegal. Next up, hemp companies' big win could change all cannabinoid laws. And this one comes from Lulamoon 9967, who says, man, this could actually be huge. Been using Treehouse Delta-8 for a while now and would hate to see it disappear when it's way more accessible than the usual options. And our response was, it's a complicated issue. For states where cannabis is not legal, hemp is the only alternative. Thank you for your comment. Then we got a comment on that from Ricky Ticky 26986. Do you mind if I ask you a question? No, I don't, Ricky, but I'm not prepared for it. I've been hearing that Delta-8 is bad for you because it's a synthetic form. What form of Delta-8 is Treehouse? What is it, and how do you partake in it to feel the effects? Is it harmful for you, but you're okay with it? Honestly, Ricky, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. We usually don't deal with Delta-8. Are there more comments? Nope. All right. Oh, wait. Here we go, another one. New study challenges the lazy stoner stereotype. Yeah, this was a great story. Lazy stoners. We're not all Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, right? So Buddy Davidson, 8549, says, not all marijuana makes you lazy. But me personally, I prefer smoking the kind that does make you lazy. It's a choice worth making, and it's all good. Whether you're an indica or a sativa guy or gal, it's all good. You have to figure out which one works best for you at which time of day. Another one on the new study on lazy stoners comes from Chrome Dome 456. He says, it depends on my mood and if things need to be done. That's why I use sativa when being active, and indica leaning hybrid or indica is used for relaxing on the couch. And that's smart. That's how it's done. Way to go. Last one. All right, let's see here. Congress could ban Delta-8 and THC drinks, and the hemp industry sounds the alarm. So this is from the Forgotten Man 5251. Hey man, we're not going to forget you. Who says, it helped me stop drinking 30 years ago. And that's a thing, folks. People report that all the time. I drank too much, started using marijuana, don't drink anymore, and I'm reasonable with the marijuana. If it works for you, that's great. We're glad it works. All right, so before we wrap up tonight's show, we want to invite you to become part of the Cough Country community. The official Cough Country Discord server is now live, and it's quickly becoming the place where our viewers, content creators, industry professionals, and cannabis enthusiasts every day, or connect every day. So whether you want to discuss the latest Cough Country news stories, or if you want to share industry insights, connect with fellow viewers, or get updates on upcoming interviews and shows, our Discord community is the place to be. You'll also get access to exclusive announcements, behind-the-scenes content, live event updates, special giveaways, and direct interaction with the Cough Country TV team. Joining is easy. Simply scan the QR code on your screen, right there, or use the link down in the description. We're building more than a network. We're trying to build a community. Please join the conversation, join the family, join the official Cough Country Discord today, and stay tuned because we've got plenty more content coming your way. And that's our report for tonight. Oh. Yes, sorry folks. Coming up tonight at 8 o'clock, live remote with Aubrey Amatelli, founder of Pay Rio. This will be at 8 p.m. Eastern Time tonight on the Late Night Green interview show. Philly Phil will be talking to Aubrey. Should be a great interview. So, thank you for joining us for another edition of Cough Country News. And before you go, don't forget to join us again tonight. We'll be talking about cannabis, payments, business growth, financial solutions, and some of the biggest challenges facing companies both inside and outside the cannabis industry. Then, at 10 p.m. Eastern, join Philly Phil, Todd Father, and myself, and the rest of the crew for another live episode of Late Night Green. As always, we're going to do green collar paydays. We'll be taking guesses among the crew as to how much the cannabis industry makes. As always, we appreciate every viewer, every comment, every share, and every member of the Cough Country community. So, until next time, I'm Billo, and as we always say, no sticks, no seeds, just news. Good night, citizens. Thank you for watching.
No sticks, no seeds, just news.